In today's video, I'm going to be ranking the top 10 shooting guards of all time. Yesterday, I uploaded the point guards video, and this is the second video of a 5-part series where I'm going to be ranking the top 10 of all time from each position and uploading them daily. As I mentioned yesterday, I uploaded the point guards video. If you missed that, the link will be down below in the description. Make sure you go check it out before watching this one. And then in terms of the shooting guards, this is a very interesting list with a lot of all-time top players on it. And there are also a lot of players on this list that are very hard to rank. So let's get into the video, but before we start, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you're new. Still a very small percentage of you guys are subscribed, and you don't want to miss out on the rest of the series and the rest of all my new videos. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and with that being said, let's get started with the list. So first off, we've got some honorable mentions. The first one is Pete Maravich. He would definitely be on the list if it wasn't for the knee injury that he suffered late in his career, but that really allowed him to not be consistent throughout the rest of his career. And like I mentioned, he'd definitely be on the list if it wasn't for that, but that really ended his career. The next one is Manu Ginobili, one of the best role players we've ever seen, but he's really just that. In my opinion, he wasn't special enough to make the list, but he was a fantastic contributor to the Spurs over the years in their dynasty and was very close to making the list. And another one is Earl Monroe. He's the last honorable mentions for this video, and he's another guy that wasn't quite special enough throughout his entire career to make the list, but was still very close. Kicking off the top 10 shooting guards of all time list now, at number 10, I've got George Gervin. George Gervin was a guy who was never really a good defender, never won a championship, and never came close to winning an MVP, so he can't rank that much higher on this list, but he definitely has to make it. He just squeaked in for me, and the reason is that over his career, he consistently averaged 25 points per game, and he even led the league in scoring 4 times in his career, and even led the playoffs in scoring 6 times in his career. He can't rank that much higher, as I mentioned, but his overall scoring ability definitely gets him on the list. At number 9 on the list, I've got Reggie Miller. Reggie Miller is definitely a top 5 shooter of all time. Probably not as good a shooter as some of the guys on this list, but in my opinion, definitely still top 5. For his career, he consistently shot about 40% from 3 and was a very good free throw shooter, leading the leagues in free throw percentage multiple times as well, along with 3-point percentage. So he's a very good shooter. Like I mentioned, not as good as some of the other guys on this list, and his things like doing little things like playmaking and rebounding holds him back a little bit on this list, but he's a very good shooter, and he even led a team to a championship throughout his career once, so that's why he's ranking here at 9. At number 8, I've got Ray Allen, another all-time great shooter, probably unanimously a top 3 shooter of all time, ranking him a little bit over Reggie Miller. Again, he shot around 40% from 3 throughout his career, but really what ranks him a little bit over Reggie Miller is how his shooting ability contributed to championships. What sticks out is the 2008 championship with the Boston Celtics, and when he was in his prime, he was an absolutely dominant shooter, and even late in his career, hitting the clutchest shot of all time with the 2013 Miami Heat in the NBA Finals. Shots like this really boosts Ray Allen's legacy, and his shooting ability, like I mentioned, contributed to championships, and he was definitely a winning player and one of the most winning players we've ever seen. The fact that really all he did was shoot is why he can't rank a little bit higher on this list, but his shooting ability definitely gets him on. At number 7, I've got Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson versus Ray Allen is one of the most interesting player comparisons because they're extremely similar. Both are top 3 shooters of all time. Both are shooters that have contributed to championships with their abilities, and both are all-time great shooting guards. But what ranks Klay a little bit higher for me is throughout his career, he's been a very good defender as well. He's also contributed to 3 championships, kind of the same shooting ability as Ray Allen, but his defense ranks him a little bit over him on this list. Klay throughout his career has been a very good perimeter defender, and over his career, his impact has been incredible on both ends of the floor, so because of his defensive impact, it ranks him just a little bit over Ray Allen for me. At number 6 on the list, I've got Clyde Drexler. The last 3 players on this list have been all-time great shooters, but really sharp shooters. Clyde Drexler puts himself in a little bit of a different tier on this list, in my opinion, because he was a guy that was much more of a better all-around player and could create his own shot. For his career, he averaged 20 points per game and was a very good and overall scorer, and he also averaged 6 rebounds and about 5.5 assists. A great rebounder, playmaker, and scorer, a guy that in his prime looked like an MVP caliber player and even led the 1992 Portland Trail Blazers all the way to the NBA Finals on his back. So because of these reasons, he's ranking here at 6th for me. At number 5 on the list, I've got James Harden. James Harden is one of the most controversial players to rank on an all-time list because he's never been a winning player, and really his playstyle will never contribute to a championship. I wanted to rank him lower on this list, but really I can't because he's one of, if not the best scorer that we have ever seen in the game. There have been seasons where he's averaged close to 40 points, and his ISO game is really truly incredible, but like I mentioned, will never really contribute to a championship. He's more into contributing to himself and for his stats than he is for the team, and really what we're seeing now with him in the NBA in these recent days with the Houston Rockets and their situation is really why he's never going to win a championship. But he's still an incredible player on the court, so in my opinion he has to rank at least in the top 5 for shooting guards. At number 4, I've got Dwayne Wade, and really the difference between Dwayne Wade and James Harden is just a winning mentality and championships to back it up. Dwayne Wade, as we know, has 3 championships throughout his career. One was in 2006, which for me really boosts his legacy since he carried that Miami Heat team all the way to the championship, was an absolutely dominant scorer. And then when his production started to drop later in his career, which by the way is why I don't have him in the top 3, he still won 2 championships and contributed to a championship with the Miami Heat again twice with LeBron James and Chris Bosh. So the fact that he was more of a winning player is why he ranks over Harden. Harden might actually be the better basketball player, and prime Harden versus prime D Wade, I probably have to take Harden in a one-on-one to be honest. But like I mentioned, how many times can I say it? Dwayne Wade is the more winning player, and despite not winning MVPs throughout his career, won the championships, which matter a little bit more, and that 2006 season that he had, where he beat the Dallas Mavericks almost single-handedly in the NBA Finals, carrying his team with his scoring ability, really boosts his legacy. And a lot of people have him in the top 3. You'll see who I have at 3 and then ultimately 2 and 1, but for me, Dwayne Wade's ranking here at 4 for all of these reasons. At number 3, I've got Jerry West. I think a lot of people would have him on the point guards list, but I've got him here on the shooting guards list, and I know most people consider Dwayne Wade a top 3 shooting guard of all time. And if I had him on the point guards list, Jerry West that is, D-Wade would be in the top 3 of this list, but D-Wade versus Jerry West is a very tough comparison, and the reason I ultimately gave it to Jerry West was just dominance throughout his career consistently. Despite playing in the 60s, he was still an incredibly dominant player and should be considered a top 20 player of all time unanimously. Even though he played in the 60s, his career stats are looking like 27 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, and 6.7 assists for his career. An incredible overall offensive player, and he was dominant throughout his career. And Dwayne Wade, as I mentioned, his production slightly dropped a little bit towards the end of his career and wasn't as dominant for as long, so that's the reason I'm giving this 3rd spot on the list to Jerry West, is because of dominance throughout his career consistently. It's still a very close comparison though, but ultimately I have Jerry West as the 3rd best shooting guard of all time. At number 2 on the list, I've got Kobe Bryant. As always, rest in peace to Kobe. Throughout his career, he was a 5-time NBA champion, 2-time Finals MVP, a 2-time scoring champion, and a 1-time MVP, which could have been a 3 or 4-time MVP. In my opinion, he was robbed of that award a couple of times. But we all know what Kobe's about. He had that incredible post-game, mid-range game, was a great shooter, and just overall scorer anywhere on the court. A great playmaker, made the all-defensive team multiple times, and really one of the greatest players of all time without a doubt. A lot more people are considering him a top 10 player now, which he basically unanimously should be in my opinion, and a lot more people are considering him a top 5 player. And what does it for me, I have him squeaking into the top 5 on my list, which I'll discuss a little bit more later on my channel, my all-time list. But I have him in my top 5 because in 2009 and 2010, he absolutely carried those Lakers teams all the way to winning the NBA championship. On this list, he should basically unanimously be at 2, and that's where I have him as well. And number 1 is Michael Jordan. Do I even have to go through his resume? We know what MJ is about, we know what he did in his career. He's probably 60% of people in the world consider him the GOAT, and he's easily the greatest shooting guard of all time. So there you have it. Those are my top 10 shooting guards of all time. Make sure you leave in the comments what you agree with, what you disagree with, and feel free to leave your own top 10 shooting guards list in the comments. As I mentioned, make sure you check out the point guards list, the first video of this series, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the rest of this series. 3 more days in a row, I'm going to be posting all-time small forwards, power forwards, and centers, so definitely stay tuned for that. Thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.